sports. Let's get into a little football. Let's talk with the man, the myth, the legend that is ALAiN POUPART. We're going to talk a little Miami Dolphins, our Sports Grill Miami Dolphins report with the man, the myth, the legend that is ALAiN POUPART. And, of course, you can follow him on Twitter at POUPART NFL. You see it right there on the screen. But, of course, those of you that are podcasting, you're not watching the screen. So there you go. Don't you find it funny sometimes how athletes will say, yeah, no, I'll just switch sports and I'll do whatever. And there's this like they hate when you disrespect their sport, but they'll disrespect another athlete's sport really quickly.
Michael Jordan, right?
Right.
Yeah, I'm the greatest at basketball. I can play baseball, no problem.
Right, of course. Yeah, I can do the hardest thing that there is to do in all of sports, which is hit a little baseball with a 3-inch bat. Yeah, no, of course I can do that. It's absolutely hilarious. Before we get into
what's worse is when guys are given shots at other sports just because of who they are, you know, at the detriment of somebody else who's worked his whole life to try to make a career out of it.
Right,
that's
right.
That's not right.
Yeah, no, and look, you know, it's a great example, the Dolphins, because their fourth tight end is a guy that's kind of intriguing, right? And so you're like, what if it would have been Tebow and that kid doesn't get an opportunity? You're like, well, wait a minute, that's the part that's kind of sucks for that situation. Now, let me stay right there before I get into the Dolphins. Gardner Minshew was traded now. And I see all over, you know, which is a great point. I didn't even think about it at that moment, and it's maybe kind of early for me to even start to register anything right now in my brain. But the fact that he had Minshew and him, you know, competing until now and taking reps away, and then you go trade him, that's an interesting point by some folks out there where you were just better off giving him all the reps. It was a farce of a competition anyways.
It's completely ridiculous. Like, did anybody in their right mind think for half a second that Trevor Lawrence was not going to be the week 1 starter for the Jaguars? I mean, come on, let's get serious. And I had somebody point out to me, well, that's just Urban Meyer trying to prove he's more, you know, smarter than everybody else in the room, and at every turn trying to do something like that. I mean, he's already made some head-scratching moves. You start with drafting Travis Etienne in the first round
when you had
James Robinson there. It was their second of 2 first-round picks.
And they had Hyde. And they had Hyde also.
Carlos Hyde. But the idea is like he was going to be his Percy Harvin, I guess. But the Jaguars don't have other needs all over the roster. That's number one. Number two, you bring in Tim Tebow, as you mentioned earlier. So, I mean, let's just say I don't know what the Jaguars' record is going to be in 2021. I suspect it's not going to be very good, but let's just say that so far the signs aren't great when it comes to Urban Meyer's NFL coaching debut.
I will admit I will be rooting against him. I'm just saying I'm not an Urban Meyer fan. I'm talking about the person. I'm just not a fan of that guy. I think he's probably one of the biggest phonies ever on the freaking planet. And it kind of reminds me of the player that commits all kinds of infractions off the field and then keeps getting second and third and fourth and fifth chances. Mm-hmm. This guy's done so many shady things, and yet people still bring him aboard to be a part of their corporation or their institution. And it feels dirty to me, dude. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally agree with you there.
That's the problem that does it. All right. The game lost a little sizzle because Tua is out. But there is at least some kind of sizzle, I would imagine, for this game, because it's fun to see maybe Jalen Phillips get more playing time, Hunter Long gets some playing time, Iggy gets some playing time. So there are certain players that really need this game for rep purposes and experience, right?
Yeah, no question. And as you mentioned, we focused on the guys who were high draft picks last year and this year. And it's not just Tua who's sitting. I mean, Brian Flores said most of the starters are going to be sitting. And for example, on the offensive line, it's going to be Jesse Davis is going to sit, but I would expect the other guys to play. And that's good because they need the reps. It would be nice to see Austin Jackson have a nice game. From my understanding is the Bengals are going to use their defensive starters for a little bit. So that could be good work. So it would be nice for those guys to have a good outing up front, because we didn't really see that the first 2 games, even though the results were really good against Atlanta. But a lot of that, I would suggest, was because Tua was getting rid of the ball really, really quickly because his wide receivers were getting open really quickly. So absolutely the offensive line are guys to watch for. Hunter Long, you mentioned. Noah Benogany, you mentioned. Jalen Phillips, you mentioned. Without question, those are the guys you want to see. More so than, and I understand, maybe my guess is Brian Flores probably knows who 50 of his 53 are going to be. So sure, there's going to be some battle for 51, 52, and 53. To me, it's a lot more so for middle of the roster guys who are young, who you want to see some steps forward.
You know, ALAiN, when we start looking at maybe some of the bubble spots, out of curiosity, is this an important game for Matt Skura? Could the Dolphins be in the market for another center, get either trade or acquire somebody? Because has Skura done enough to make you feel good that maybe some of the issues he's had in the past are gone? Can you count on him? How important of a game is this, or do you think it's a foregone conclusion he's made the team?
Yeah, that's one of those that's tough, because I'm not privy to the practice game film. And if I were to tell you that I've had my binoculars on him the entire training camp when I was out of practice, I'd be lying, because there's a lot to watch, and Matt Skura is not necessarily high on my list of priorities. That said, when it comes to the offensive line in practice and in games, what you're looking for is things that stand out one way or the other, either really good or really bad. And I can't say that I've noticed anything overly bad or overly good from Skura. He's been a guy in the middle of that offensive line. So that comes down to, has he been taking care of his assignments, and that the coaches would know. Having said all that, I'd kind of be surprised if he didn't make the 53. Obviously, as a backup, it's clearly Michael Dieter's going to be the starter at center. But they need a backup center, and I don't think Cameron Tom, who they signed after he had a couple of years with the Saints, I don't think I've seen enough from him to suggest that he'd be the guy to beat him out. So
it could happen.
Long answer short, I would think Skura is a pretty safe bet to make the 53.
Okay. All right. Now, this one's kind of screwed up and twisted, but very understandable. Okay. Patrick Laird is the safe one to add as your 4th guy. Jared Dokes is a kid that maybe if you want to stash him, then maybe you don't play him a lot tomorrow, because if he goes out and has a magical performance for himself, then all of a sudden he brings all that attention to himself and you can't stash him. So is tomorrow at all anything between Laird and Dokes, or do you think what I was talking about, maybe the safe route is they'll keep Laird because he's a good pass catcher, and then we'll stash Dokes, maybe not use him a lot tomorrow? What do you think?
Yeah, here's the thing. That to me would be one of those where the Dolphins already know, because it's clear what the two guys have. Like Patrick Laird, I hate to say this about the guy. I really like the guy, but there's nothing special about him in terms of physical skills, except he's going to do what he's supposed to do every time. And he's basically going to maximize what he can on every play. He's going to catch the ball when you throw it to him. If there's 3 yards to be had on the run, he's going to gain 3 yards. And here's a key factor. He'll contribute on special teams. I did not spot Dokes on special teams once during training camp.
I agree.
He's got clearly a higher ceiling as a running back, as a ball carrier, I should say, than Patrick Laird. And then the other factor is, this goes back to the spring, the dude can't catch the ball.
Right.
I mean, in the spring, they're throwing like a 5-yard pass in a 7-on-7 drill, or even in like a one-on-one backer against back guard in coverage. He's dropping passes left and right, and it's continued in camp.
Right.
So now you have to weigh those costs. And the other factor is the Dolphins did spend a 7th-round pick on Dokes this year. I understand it's only a 7th-round pick, but it's a draft pick nonetheless. So that's one where I flip a coin. I did a roster projection on All Dolphins website last week. I had Dokes because of the higher upside as a runner, and the fact he's 7th-round pick. And to be honest with you, I'm not 100% sold on that to be missed. Let's say not even out of 100. Let's say out of 1,000, 501 chances it's Dokes, 499 it's Laird. I mean, it's that close.
How deep do you think they go at defensive back?
10 or 11. That would be the number. I've seen teams sometimes go 9. They're not going to go 9. So I'd 10 would be the good.
So you have Fagellum definitely making it then if they're going to go 10 or 11.
I think he makes it because of special teams.
Right.
Because ideally he never sees the field on defense.
Yeah, no, he's Larry Izzo. You know, you don't want him as a linebacker, but you definitely want him on special teams overall. Does Trill Williams or LeBlanc are these the guys fighting for that last spot? Who's fighting for that last spot in your eyes then?
Yeah, no, I think Jamal Perry's got an edge on them. And the thing that he's got going for him is he can play the slot, he can play corner, he can play the slot, he can play safety, and he's a key guy on special teams. And I think that gets him on the roster more than the other guys. I like Williams. I think there's something there. I mean, big dude for a corner, and there is some coverage ability. He's a guy you try to, get on the practice squad, but I'm not sure he clears waivers. That would be my one concern with him. I think there's enough there. Especially remember the Saints were looking to bring him back when they put him on waivers, apparently for some sort of procedural roster type of deal. Back in the spring it was, and the Dolphins jumped on the opportunity to get him. So if the Dolphins were to expose him, it certainly wouldn't be a surprise if the Saints said, yeah, come back to us now.
All right. And then the linemen now, how deep do you think they go? 8, 9? How far do they go?
We talking O-lineman or D-lineman?
O-lineman.
O-lineman. It's 8 or 9 is always a number. And then the question
we're talking about Pankey, Coleman, Skura. Can they stash Neto still? Like they can keep him as the 54th guy? Is that the deal still with Neto? Or does he take a regular roster spot now? Because he was a developmental player.
You can't keep him on the roster with an exemption on the roster. Right? That doesn't work. The roster exemption for him ends at the cuts to 53.
Okay. All right. So then, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. And he's not making it then.
I don't think he makes it. There's one guy you forgot in there too that I think makes the team is Greg Little.
No, I already had Little because he's top 7, I think, of your guys, right? I would figure with him are top 7. I'm talking about 8 and 9. That's the back end now. That's why I'm trying to. I'm with you. Greg Little is definitely in already. Do you have Coleman making it as the other tackle?
No, because what they're going to need is interior alignment. Because if we go with the starting 5, Eichenberg, Little, that's 7. Skura is 8. And then I think you need somebody with more guard ability because you have enough tackles. So
yeah, I'll be interested to see
him play guard, but he's okay. I mean,
I would not be surprised if they try Little at guard today just to experiment. I mean, tomorrow. I'm sorry, not today. Tomorrow.
I haven't seen that. Didn't see that in practice. He did play both sides. He did play both sides on the offensive line, and mind you, they worked Eichenberg at guard at times in practice. So maybe he's your first backup at guard more so than the idea of trying Little over there. But that 9 spot, if they keep 9, which is not a guarantee because again they have surpluses at wide receiver and at tight end that they're going to have to work through. So maybe they just cut it short at 8 offensive linemen, keep 2 or 3 on the practice squad because they can do the elevation every week like they did last year.
Where are you at with wide receivers? What number are you locked in? Because you were pretty solid at 6 or 7, I think, last week.
I'm at 7, counting Fuller, who's going to start on the suspended list. So 6 other guys. I know you and I had the whole Albert Wilson, Jakeem Grant debate, and the fact you got some ammunition late in the week, and the fact that Wilson is not getting back to practice. And I'll give you another one as a long shot who I'm not quite sure should be written in ink anymore, and that's Preston Williams.
Upside, his future upside. I think he makes it only because Albert Wilson's a 29-year-old player. There's no upside here. Either you're using him this year or you're moving on and trade him. But Preston is a guy that I don't think you can give up on him yet, man. He has shown you so much, you know, that he's flashed so much that if he
Yeah.
can put it together, he could be what you were expecting Devontae to be, and then take off from here on out. Now, if he continues to suffer injuries like Devontae has, as you and I know, that takes a toll. Forget it.
Well, here's the great mystery, though. He got injured, and again, the two injuries he got his 2 years were fluky things that are not like an issue of conditioning. One's an ACL, the other one is we don't quite know yet. It may have been a Liz Frank, a midfoot sprain, that kind of thing. But here's the deal: is he's tracking to get back, tracking to get back, tracking to get back. Then he appears early in the off season. Then he sits out, doesn't do anything. Then he starts on PUP. Then he starts practicing a little bit. Then they're holding him out. So certainly it could be a case of it's a really, really severe injury, and they're trying to be very cautious with him and all that. But what we don't know behind the scenes is what kind of rehab work has he done.
Right.
Is he a guy who can be counted on to do everything that he needs to do to maximize his potential? That's why I said, yeah, no, there's no question. There's a lot of upside with the guy. Okay. My question is, does he fit the mold of somebody who you can depend on? That's somebody the Dolphins want. If you remember, Brian Flores keeps saying, what's the phrase he always uses to describe players he really likes? Football's important to him.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm not suggesting it's not to Preston win, but we just don't know that.
Yeah, I know, but to Preston's credit, the off the field issues he had in college, the 2 years that he's been here, he has been, from everything we know of, a model citizen. It seems like the kid's been dedicated to his craft. He's just had terrible luck, unfortunately, with the injuries. So it doesn't seem to me like they would be unhappy with him on a professional level. I think maybe they're just frustrated like he is that, you know, the poor kid suffered 2 injuries and it set him back. I think, you know, I don't know. You're around the team more than I am. You tell me, do you hear any kind of negative stuff about him? Anything out there? No, right?
No, I don't. But again, we don't know what's going on in the scenes and with his rehab and all that, and and how the Dolphins have monitored it. And like I said, I'm not saying they're cutting him. I'm just saying, given the numbers they have at wide receiver, if they were to cut him, I wouldn't necessarily be floored. Let's put it that way.
I'd be so disappointed.
Okay.
I would, man, because the talent that kid has, I'm not ready to give up on that guy. I am.
Well, here's the thing, though.
Not ready. See, Albert Wilson, I at 700 and some yards in 2 seasons with the Dolphins. He's never caught more than 4 touchdowns in a career. He's 29 years old. And you look at it, he's been unreliable the last couple of years with injuries, and he also stepped out because of COVID. And so now you're talking about a kid that, you know, the love affair is what, he had 10 days of great practices and shorts. So now we're supposed to count on him. I just have a hard time. If you're not starting Albert Wilson, I have a hard time keeping him and justifying him on the roster as a backup when he doesn't help you out on special teams. That's my point.
No, okay. Two quick points. Number one, back to Preston Williams. You mentioned the upside. Absolutely. Let's also not pretend like he hasn't dropped his share of passes in his 2 seasons in the NFL. And number two, what if maybe, just maybe, it's not an issue of Albert Wilson or Preston Williams? Maybe, just maybe, the Dolphins look at the body of work that Kirk Merritt has put in throughout camp and look at his skill set and decide, that's the guy that's the guy we want to keep. And if we waive him, he's getting picked up. Just throwing it out there. I'm just throwing out possibilities. I don't think we can assume slam dunks in many places at wide receiver, again, because they have so many NFL caliber wide receivers. I think the surest things right now are Devontae Parker or Jalen Waddle, and probably the third most secure guy right now with wide receiver might be Mac Hollins.
Oh, I think, Alan, you're freezing up a lot over there. You got some internet issues there.
Let's see.
All right, you were trying to break that down, the whole thing with the receivers. It kind of broke up on us there. Say it again.
Okay, no, where?
Go ahead.
Am I good now?
Yeah, I hope so. Go ahead.
No, I hope so too. No, what I was saying is that because they have so many NFL caliber wide receivers on the roster now, I don't know that they have that many guys who we can say are locks. And to me, the two guys who are the clear locks are Jalen Waddle and Devontae Parker. And if I might suggest right now that the third biggest lock just might be Mac Hollins.
Well, Will Fuller.
Oh, Will Fuller. Sorry. Okay. Well,
Will Fuller.
He's not going to be on the original 53, though.
Right. Well, 1 week, but yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, but whatever move they make, it's only a 1 week move to keep that extra person, and that's why I think, like, if you can't trade Wilson, you buy another week to try to trade Wilson because you showcase him that first week since Will Fuller can't play, and then maybe you try to move him by then. I at least that's the way I kind of look at it, because he's the one guy that you can move right now for a draft pick. Somebody will give you something for Albert Wilson.
Or Jakeem. Let's go back to that one.
Yeah, but see, you miss zero by trading Wilson.
I know. We had that discussion last time we spoke. I hear you. I hear where you're coming from.
Yeah, that's the crazy stuff. All right, anything else we should look forward to is besides Albert Wilson? Here's another question I want to ask you before I let you go. Outside of Albert Wilson, who's a possibility of getting traded?
Jakeem Grant. Outside of that, I'd look at the tight end position. I think you're Frozen Part 3 here. If Disney wants to do Frozen Part 3, you're it right now. That's working fine from my end here. That's weird.
I'm sure if your face.
That's weird.
All right, go ahead now. Try again. Go ahead.
I would look to tight end. I'm not going to revisit the Jakeem because we had that debate last time. But I would look to tight end because they have 5 guys who are legitimate NFL tight ends: Mike Gesicki, Adam Shaheen, Durham Smythe, Ethan Carter, and Hunter Long. Now, the X factor in the equation is that Ethan Carter has a knee injury. He's out there with a brace walking around. Hasn't practiced in a while, but he's showing up on the field while his teammates are practicing, which suggests that it's not season ending. Now, having said that, the guy looked actually really good. I was shocked because when he signed with the Dolphins as a free agent in the offseason, I'll be honest with you, I was like, I'd never heard of that guy because he was mostly a special teams guy and blocker for Cincinnati, but he's looked really, really good. So what do? You keep 5 tight ends. That's an awful lot of tight ends to keep on a 53.
Yeah.
And then you have, on top of that, you have Smythe and Gesicki are free agents after the season. So would not surprise me in the least if you saw a trade involving one of those tight ends.
Yeah, and he's the guy that I was talking about when with Tebow, that, if you give Tebow a chance on this team and then Seaton doesn't get a chance, who legitimately deserves the opportunity and is a better player than Tebow, that would be the absolute crime in all of that. He is ALAiN POUPART. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at POUPART NFL. And of course, you can catch him twice a week here with the Sports Grill Miami Dolphins Insider Report. ALAiN, as always, thank you, my brother. Have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy the football tomorrow.
You do likewise, and I'll have a word with my internet provider to make sure we don't have the frozen issues anymore.
All right, baby. You be good, man. Take it easy. There you go. The great ALAiN POUPART, man. Good stuff there. As always appreciate ALAiN joining us here on the show and breaking it down, man. He does such a good job, a thorough job of covering the Miami Dolphins on a daily basis. Few have his experience being around the Dolphins, and you hear it all the time when he gets on the show with us, man. Good stuff as always.